Whenever we think of building muscle, working out, getting jacked, we think about protein, 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 protein. And when I first got into fitness, like I always knew subconsciously, and I think most people know that, hey, in order to build muscle, I should be consuming protein, right? That is why protein shakes, for example, are marketed as like drink protein shakes, you will build muscle. More protein equals more muscle, but that is not true. And sometimes too much protein can actually hurt your progress, which I will discuss in today's live stream. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So everyone learned that protein builds muscle. So gym bros started eating 300 grams, 400 grams, up to 500 grams of protein every single day, which is absolutely extreme. Every single meal they'd eat, they have like chicken breast, they'd have eggs, protein shakes, chicken and rice, obviously, right? And then companies started selling protein cookies, protein cereals, protein chips, and a lot of brands and companies now know that a lot of people look for higher protein items, so they market their foods high protein, extra protein, 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 protein. You go to a gas station and you see, like, instead of regular chips, like, you also see protein chips now. Instead of candy bars, now you see protein candy bars. Literally any food you could think of, you can more than likely find a higher protein version of it. But just because something is higher in protein does not mean that it's going to make you build more muscle or that it's automatically healthier for you or better for you. Here's what the research actually shows. Scientists looked at 62 specific studies on people who lift weights. Some ate low protein, around 0.45 grams per pound of body weight, and some ate double or triple that. And guess what happened? Muscle growth was basically the same, which is crazy. You could have one person eating, let's say, 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, which that is almost like the gold standard. You ask any fitness coach, you ask anyone who is someone into fitness, and you ask them how much protein should I be eating. The gold standard most people will tell you is just simply 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So let's say you weigh 200 pounds, you eat roughly 200 grams of protein, just based on your body weight. It's not taking into consideration your lean body mass or how much body fat percentage you have, just strictly how much you weigh is how much you eat in protein in grams. But more protein did not mean more muscle, it just meant more leftover bricks. And so essentially what that means is that beyond a certain point of protein intake will simply just get stored as either added energy, or if your body doesn't use it, let's say you're in a calorie surplus and the surplus of calories comes from protein, yes, it takes a bit longer for your body to break down, but eventually it'll just get stored into added fat. Just because you eat more protein does not mean that that added protein will get turned into muscle, as we have seen by these 62 studies now, and it'll just simply get turned into either added energy or into added fat if you're in a calorie surplus. So just know that more protein does not equal more muscle growth. It just means more calories overall, and if your body doesn't utilize those extra calories, it'll just get stored into body fat. Let's say your goal eats 2,500 calories and you get the majority of those calories from, let's say, protein, which is a horrible idea, but let's say you did that, your body's only gonna use so much towards building muscle, and then all the added protein will get used as energy. But as we hopefully now know, your body's preferred source of energy is carbohydrates. Your body isn't really super efficient at getting its main energy from protein, so that is why your body will turn the added protein eventually into glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. So why more isn't better? Think of protein like bricks for a house. Once you have enough, extra bricks don't help. Eating more than your body can use doesn't build more muscle, can make it harder to eat enough calories overall, because protein, as we all know, fills you up a lot more compared to carbohydrates and fats, just because it takes a bit longer for your body to fully break down and digest compared to the other macronutrients, carbs, and fats. Typically speaking, your body breaks down carbohydrates a lot quicker. Secondly will be the fats, and then thirdly will be the protein. So if you have a hard time in general getting your calories in, let's say you're eating 3,000 calories and you get the majority of those calories from protein and you just have a really hard time getting the food down, you're probably far better off just simply reducing your protein intake and then replacing those macronutrients with more carbs and more fats, which tend to be a lot easier to consume, a lot easier to get down. And then also most of the foods nowadays that have carbs and fats tend to be a lot tastier than strictly just protein. It can also cause digestive issues, like if you eat enough protein, maybe you guys have experienced this before, where you just kind of feel super bloated or you feel super gassy, and that never really is a fun experience, especially when you're like in public places or you're on a date or you're sleeping with someone or you're at the gym, just anywhere. Like if you're constantly bloated or constantly gassy, you're probably not gonna obviously feel the best and therefore also perform the best either. So you gotta make sure that you obviously pay attention to that. On top of that too, it's expensive. Like extra chicken can add up. Buying protein powders, buying more supplements, ground beef, especially red meat nowadays, is like, it's pretty pricey. By you eating more protein, your grocery shopping bill will definitely increase. We've actually done this exact thing with one of our clients, Kuba. He's from Poland. He is a busy dad. He has a wife, kids. He travels a lot for work. He actually looks amazing. Like he's in his late 30s or 40s. If you're watching this, shout out to you, Kuba. But when we first started the program, program with him. He was a bit kind of like skinny fat, right? Low muscle mass, high body fat. And then we've been working together for the past year or so. And all throughout this entire process, I've always encouraged him to eat at least 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, but he just tends to enjoy eating slightly more protein. I'm like, okay, that's totally cool. So we did that for honestly this past year or so. He went through an amazing transformation. He lost over 20 pounds, gained a ton of muscle, lost a ton of body fat. He just looks incredible now. Like if you see a picture of him, which I've posted on my social media before, he looks incredible. Like he looks like an absolute beast. He's an athlete. But one thing that we actually started to notice only like a couple weeks ago is that his recovery wasn't on point anymore. So he started to get it like a bit more sore. His energy levels weren't really on par. He didn't really feel as energized. And we had to take a closer look at like his actual programming, because it's like, well, his sleep is on point. He's hitting his calories. His stress levels are reduced. Like he's living a great lifestyle. So I'm like, okay, well, what's going on here? His diet looks great. He's eating whole natural, single ingredient foods. So I'm like, okay, well, what's going on? And then we look a bit closer into his macronutrients. What we noticed is that his protein intake was way too high. We're talking like 1.5 grams of protein per pound of body weight. So he weighs around 160 pounds. He was eating up to like 200 to 20 grams of protein every single day. It's like, okay, well, it's not the end of the world. But if you notice that you're eating a lot of protein, more than you should be, and you notice that your recovery starts to diminish, your pumps in the gym aren't as good, your sleep maybe starts to suffer, and your energy levels and your moods just tend to be a bit lower, it may be a good idea to drop your protein intake, and with those extra calories now, use those towards more carbs and more fats. And that's exactly what we did with our client Kuba. And guess what happened? His energy levels increased, his mood increased, his sleep increased, his recovery increased. Everything literally got a lot better. And specifically with him, we really had to look closely into this, because everything else in his life was just completely optimized. Like he's an absolute machine. Like I knew that, okay, everything is optimized for you, Kuba. Like what's going on here? Sometimes you just have to like really take a close look into not specifically the food you're eating, not specifically your calories even, but your macronutrients, right? Like your macronutrient breakdown. How much protein are you eating? How much fat are you eating? How much carbs are you eating? And the issue with eating a lot more protein than you should be eating is that that literally takes calories away from fats and carbs that you could potentially be eating. And carbs have amazing effects on your body. It gives you better performance in the gym, makes you recover a lot better, makes you sleep better, your brain power increases. Same thing with fats. If you're eating way too much protein where your fats are super low, well, guess what will happen? Your hormones will plummet. We're so obsessed with like eating more protein, but given that there's only a finite of calories that we could be consuming, right? Anything beyond what we really should be eating protein wise, it's just a waste. It's almost like the opportunity cost of like, well, if we eat more protein, we're quite literally taking calories away from eating more carbs and more fats, which could actually help us feel better, perform better, sleep better. That is what I want you guys to take away from this video. Eating more protein will simply just take calories away from eating more carbs and more fats, which are also super beneficial to your body. And if you notice what our client Kuba experienced, feeling lethargic or feeling drained, low pumps in the gym, or just like not really feeling like you want to do things, maybe worth considering dropping your protein intake beyond more than you need, because there's absolutely no use for that, and instead use those extra calories towards eating more carbohydrates and more fats. Experiment with that for just 2, 3, 4 weeks, but I guarantee you, you're gonna feel a whole lot better. And this is a mistake that I made in the past as well. I used to eat up to 200 grams of protein every single day, and for someone who typically weighs around 150 pounds, that is way more than I need. And now I genuinely do enjoy eating chicken. I love eating eggs. I love eating steak, beef. Like I love protein type foods. And so if you actually enjoy eating protein, then that's cool. Just be aware of the trade-off. And then secondly, if you're on a fat loss phase, so if you're in a calorie deficit and you're eating less calories than you burn, protein, like I said earlier on, can also have a great satiety effect or satiation effect, which means that it'll keep you nice and full for longer compared to eating more carbs and fats. Those are two, I would say, pretty valid reasons for you having slightly more protein than you should. But if you're strictly just eating more protein in hopes of building more muscle, then I would immediately stop doing that. But if you're fully aware that, hey, the added protein that I'm eating right now, despite me paying more in groceries because protein is more expensive, and despite me maybe not feeling the best because, once again, yeah, your energy may not be super high if you're eating more protein and you're taking calories away from carbs, and you're okay with that because you feel more satiated and you feel fuller for longer and you just enjoy the taste, and as long as you're aware of that trade-off, then you are totally good. I just don't want you guys watching this thinking that the more protein I eat, the better, because that cannot be further from the truth. What actually builds muscle? So first thing is hard training. A lot of people obsess over their diet and then they neglect the actual training part of it. But without you actually going into the gym, breaking down the muscle, progressively overloading, trying to get stronger by adding more reps or adding more weight over time, the added protein is not going to magically help you build more muscle. It's almost like taking steroids without working out. I mean, yes, that's an extreme example, and I think studies have actually shown that if you just take steroids without working out, you will slightly build more muscle because you'll just have more testosterone, and that could indirectly help you just build more muscle. Just because you're eating more protein does not mean it's going to turn into muscle especially if you're not working out or exercising, and especially training hard, right? So make sure that your training is on point. You follow a good training program that implements progressive overloads that makes you get stronger over time, because without that, like I said, protein is not going to really do anything for you. Second thing is calories. We often stress about our macronutrients, but you got to think about the calories, the energy we're putting into our body. You could be on a super high protein diet, but if you're eating 1,000 calories, if you're eating like a diet that a little girl would eat, you're simply not going to be building muscle. You're actually probably going to lose muscle despite hitting your protein goals. So you got to make sure that your calories are dialed in and on point. You're not eating too many calories where you just get fat and obese and overweight, but then also not too little calories where you can simply not fuel your body towards having good workouts, getting stronger. So you need enough fuel for recovery and for energy. And then the third thing is moderate protein intake. So we don't have to be super extreme on the high end of things, and at the same time we shouldn't be super like low where we eat like zero protein, because obviously we do need some type of protein, which is actually a good thing, because that means that we can actually save a lot in terms of groceries, where we don't have to buy a ton of chicken breast or buy a ton of eggs or buy a ton of red meat. We can just buy a normal amount of protein, and if you want to supplement in a protein powder, you guys can actually go shop online to myprotein.com, and if you use code Cohnan at the checkout, you actually get up to 45 if not 50% off your entire order. And I have all my clients order their supplements from there. And so especially even if you have a hard time getting enough protein intake from whole foods, which I always recommend, chicken, beef, steak, eggs, dairy, Greek yogurt, all these things, supplementing in a protein powder could be super beneficial, and it's actually going to be a lot cheaper per serving, the cost, compared to chicken, beef, eggs, fish. If you can digest it well, 100% recommend protein powders. There are some cleaner versions of protein. So if you get like a whey isolate, that literally strips away most, if not all, of the lactose. There's even something called hydrolyzed whey isolate, which literally is the cleanest form of protein that you can get. And all these proteins you can get from the MyProtein website. They have amazing flavors. I've been using them since literally 2016 when I was 16 years old. No kidney issues. I actually made a video about this as well, but unless you have pre-existing kidney issues, it's not going to harm your kidneys either. So think of it this way. Protein supports your training and it doesn't replace it. So make sure your training is on point, you're eating enough calories, and then once those things are on point, then just having moderate amounts of protein will be good for you. We talked about a lot of things, but I haven't even told you how much you actually need protein-wise. So you only need about 0.5 to 0.7 grams of protein per pound of body weight to build muscle. So for example, if you weigh 180 pounds, try to get around 100 to 125 grams of protein. That's going to be plenty. And make sure that the protein intake does come from like actual high quality sources of protein and have a full amino acid profile, which is like the building blocks of protein. So think of like, once again, your chicken, your beef, your fish, your eggs, your Greek yogurt, any dairy products, or once again, a protein powder. The protein you get from like oats, breads, peanut butters, and rice are not going to be complete sources of protein, but if you combine all these together alongside those complete protein sources, you're going to be absolutely good to go. Eat a couple eggs for breakfast, you have a turkey ham sandwich for lunch, you have a chicken and rice meal for dinner, you have a protein shake 10 a day, like you're going to have plenty of protein. Here's when more protein can actually help. Number one, when you're dieting really hard, especially under 50% body fat. So let's say you're in a calorie deficit, eating slightly more protein to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight up to 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight can be really beneficial, just to make sure that you're at the very least preserving your muscle mass, if not building a bit of muscle mass as well, because naturally speaking, going back to my previous point, if you're in an energy deficit, you're super prone to muscle loss. So we can offset that by number one, training hard, and then number two, eating slightly more protein. Number two, when you're struggling with hunger, protein is the most satiating macronutrient. If you're currently eating relatively lower amounts of protein and you're constantly hungry, it could be worth increasing your protein intake just to kind of see how that affects your hunger. For most of our clients, what we've noticed is that when we increase their protein intake, that they actually stay a lot fuller for a lot longer, and they can actually stick to their diet as well. And then number three, when you just like eating it. I just love eating protein. Whenever I go to an all-you-can-eat restaurant, my eyes immediately look towards the protein. I love the taste of protein. I love steak. I love chicken. You put any food around me, and I actually thought about this last night. Someone asked me this. You could have any cheat meal right now. What would it be? I would literally tell you, I would go to Walmart and I'd buy you like this huge rotisserie chicken with some vegetables on the side and avocado. That to me is like my dream, basically. Whereas most people will say like, oh, I want a pizza, I want burgers, I want fries. But for me, like, I'm like, give me some wings, give me rotisserie chicken, like give me that as the base, and like that will satisfy literally all of my cravings. So I just love eating protein. So here's the key takeaway. Protein, yes, it is 100% important. Just like carbohydrates, those are also really important. Just like fats are also really important. And that is why I'm not a big fan, and it kind of drives me me crazy where people literally obsess over either excluding entire macronutrients or just completely honing in on just eating one macronutrient. Like you go on social media and there's like different tribes out there that say, oh, you don't need carbs, you don't need protein and fats, you're carnivore people. And then you have the other people, oh, you don't need protein, just eat more carbs and fats, the vegan people. It's like, what's wrong with just eating a bit of protein, a bit of carbs, and a bit of fats, and just eating moderate amounts of that, and just feeling optimal all the time? I guarantee you, people on carnivore, people on keto, people on vegan, people on whatever diet they are, unless it's, of course, for dietary restrictions or religious purposes, if you're strictly choosing that to like feel better, you're gonna feel your best if you eat enough protein, enough carbs, and enough fats, and by not excluding macronutrients. And so that's why I preach to my clients and to you guys, just eat a balanced diet. Eat some protein, eat some carbs, eat some fats. Do not exclude food groups from your diet. It literally makes no sense. You're literally gonna be depriving yourself from key macronutrients, from key micronutrients, and then you're gonna wonder to yourself why you don't feel the best, or why your sleep sucks, or why you have no pumps in the gym, why you have no libido, why you have no sex drive. It's like, look at your diet. You're literally eating no fats, or you're eating way too much protein, or eating way too little carbs. Hopefully you guys took this key takeaway from this video, where protein is important, but it is not magic. And once you're in that sweet spot, focus on training hard, eating enough calories, and getting enough sleep. Because muscle growth isn't built by eating more chicken, it is built by showing up and training smarter. And so if you notice that right now you're eating a ton of protein and you feel like crap, take note of that and then experiment with slightly lower protein intakes and slightly higher carb intakes, and then track how you feel, your energy levels, your performance in the gym, your pumps, your sleep, your mood, all these things. And if you notice that you feel 10 times better, take note of that. Write down exactly what food you ate, your macronutrient breakdown, because success leaves clues. If you want to be successful and you've had a successful day in the past, guess what you should be doing? You should look back on your successful day and take note of that. Write down everything you did from morning time to nighttime and just literally replicate that the best you can. Now, if you need help figuring out the right balance for your body, what you can go do is you can book a free consultation call with me down below, where we'll essentially go over your current goals, whether it's gain more muscle, lose body fat, combination of both. We'll go over your current struggles, whether it's with your diets or your sleep, your workouts, your nutrition, all these things. And we'll create a game plan together to help you absolutely crush them in the next couple months. And I'll see y'all soon. Peace.